Motor Yacht Unbridled, and I am amongst good friends here. I got Jay Wade to my left, and I got Michael Moore to my right. And here today on Yachting USA, we're going to talk about the International SeaKeepers Society. Hey, guys, thanks for joining us.
Morning.
Yeah, morning, Rick. Thanks for having us.
I feel honored, privileged. This is wonderful. Known you guys forever, it seems like. And last night, we were at a really cool industry event. We're in the middle of the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show. And as a board member of the ISS, I was really, really proud to see us back at the Performing Arts Center. We had the Design Award and Leadership Award gala last night. And saw you guys show up on stage, and I thought that was pretty cool. There was not only did you sponsor, but I think you got some recognition for some of the good work SeaKeepers does. Good night last night.
It's fantastic. You know, that's one of my favorite events, favorite yachting events, and last night was no exception. And I like this. I like the Broward Center for the Performing Arts as well.
It's great to get back there.
That's a great venue. It's fun. It's really exciting, and all the great people, and get to see all the cool boats. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Yep. Spoke to Jonathan Beckett, the senior Supremo at Burgess. He's been to 20 or so of these events. He says it was the best ever,
hands down.
And he says what makes it so remarkable is it is an industry event produced by industry professionals, and it just makes it special.
And I should say, all volunteer too.
All volunteer.
Yeah, they did a heck of a job.
Getting paid. Yeah,
I really did.
Yeah. So kudos to the International Super Yacht Society. But we're here really to talk about the International SeaKeepers Society. Try not to confuse those two organizations. Right. And if you know me and how I work with Yachting USA, I love going back in history, because I think when you know your history, you have a better opportunity to craft your future. And so wait, Jay, you came in kind of midstream a little bit, but Michael, you were the one of the founding members of the International SeaKeepers Society.
Well, the founding members were actually people that I think stated correctly. I think of as Alex Dreyfus, who was the first seakeeper, number one. Remarkable man, owned 6 yachts or so in his lifetime, built all of them himself. He was one of these guys that was probably borderline genius. Had left Kodak back in the day because they were all chemical engineers, and he was a digital or electrical engineer.
He saw it coming.
So he gave us the first check ever with a very broad guideline, which was do good with this. It's 50 grand. The second guy in the door was a young man named Paul Allen, who was 45 years old at the time.
Wow.
Who gave us a multiple of what Alex Dreyfus did, just because he thought it was funny to do so. It was a brilliant man, for sure. Microsoft founder, of course. And
quite a philanthropist.
Yeah,
in all regards.
Awesome philanthropist. And the thing that was happening in 1998 was global warming, but specifically coral bleaching. That was the new thing. People had not even understood the expression. But the other 4 guys, there were 6 of them, they were actually the founders, in the sense that, success has 1,000 fathers, failures an orphan. But these are the guys that really decided they could fix this little problem called global bleaching, coral bleaching. They had experienced it in their travels. All were yacht owners. And they were at that stage in their lives when they thought they could solve any problem. And they said, well, why don't we get seakeepers to do this? This is a long answer to your rather sharp
it's the foundation
question,
of the organization.
It is what happened. I was I wasn't super young at the time. I'd have to do the math on that, but
don't do the math.
I don't want to do the math on it.
Do yourself a favor. Don't do the math.
I can tell you I was probably, honestly, in my early 40s, because I think Paul Allen was older than me, and he was 45.
Okay.
And I remember that because I thought, well, I'd like to be Paul Allen. but
Who
there's
wouldn't?
a couple of problems. I'm not smart enough. And one of the things about the yacht world is you meet a lot of people that are just scary smart, right? I mean, like scary smart.
Right.
And he was one of those guys. And his parents were librarians, and I'm getting to a point here. And his one mandate was make it like a library, so you can check things in and check things out and not charge people money. And that seemed like a beautiful thing. So my job as a young lawyer, eager to serve, eager to, be somebody, was to go and run and do what people basically were asking me to do. Not getting paid for it, but
Right.
not just they weren't clients, but I felt privileged to be in the room with those people.
I get that.
They were so magical.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the foundation of the organization, and it took a little bit of time, I think, for it to kind of mature into an organization people started paying attention to and becoming aware of. How'd that happen?
The way I see it, and Jay was a part of it back in the day, he was kind of the quiet submarine guy from Oklahoma.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I thought, the last,
Obviously.
the port of Oklahoma City, which I found interesting. But he has a story to tell that's related to Seakeepers having to do with the submarine he dragged around Monaco back in the day. But things were so magical, and there wasn't anything that wasn't possible. I really did believe that these guys could do exactly what they said they could do. Even then, I knew 45-year-olds were not supposed to be giving out $250,000 checks. It was
That's not typical.
and I thought, well, that's seed money.
That's seed money. Yeah.
And we're going to have to we're going to be stewards of this money.
Right.
But to kind of stay on the subject of origins and how it became what it became, I think that there's a lot of credit that goes around to people that were out there. Last night I saw, and I remember nominating him for the position, Jim Gilbert was
Yes.
the Leadership Award
I picked up on that too.
Now, I nominated him for that award back in the day, principally because of Seakeepers.
Okay.
He was a driving force behind Seakeepers. He was I hope he's listening. Are you listening, Jim?
I hope so too.
He was
Hi, Jim.
he would be what I would call a total dyed-in-the-wool leftist, environmentalist, progressive, a very other-centered guy, and incredibly enough, he was editor-in-chief
I was going to
of
say
the number one.
This is how he fits into mainstream yachting media,
exactly.
like being that
And so,
guy, right?
He's the editor-in-chief of Showboats magazine. It's like
It's good to
Tim.
have a pulpit.
And I remember
Right.
saying to something exactly, but I asked this guy, did you read what he wrote? He said, yeah, I read it, Michael, but nobody else reads it. It's like Playboy. They just look at the pictures. And I went, that's crazy, because he's like saying things about the yacht world that are so offensive to many people,
Right.
yacht owners.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they weren't true,
They're true.
but it's like, dude, I don't really need you to be lecturing me.
right.
I didn't really pay you to do that.
Right. But
anyway,
but I think it's important. And again, I said
I love the guy, by the way.
I said, yeah, I met him early on in my career too, and I thought he was amazing. But it's good when you do have a voice,
Right.
and are willing to speak the truth and let others speak the truth about whatever it is they need or feel they should talk about. And that's the beauty of this podcast, is we do that.
And let me mention one other guy. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
please.
I'm not
No,
going to
go.
let this
Drop it
origin
in.
question go. Because, again, success does have a lot of fathers. And, when you don't really have to worry about success so much when you're not afraid of who gets the credit.
Right.
So, yeah, I remember going to the University of Miami, sitting down with the dean, who I think he thought he had died and gone to heaven, because there's this yacht guy and people, and they're now saying, can you build this thing for us, and let me describe to you what we're looking for. That was a magical moment. But Jim Gilbert, to get back to him, with his platform, with his Showboats magazine platform, he had direct access to the yachting world.
Of course.
And I mean, I did in a sense, but I you know, as a maritime lawyer, but not in the context of, you know, you meet a girl at a bar and it's like, well, if this is love, I want my money back kind of thing. Gilbert was the girl that you meet at a cocktail party. You know, he had a magazine and he's a writer.
Yeah.
So he's kind of a cool guy.
And kind of eloquent, I was going to say.
And, you know, people love that. He's like this easy, kind of cool, you know, going to change the world environmentalist. And then we had this other guy, and if he's listening, God bless him. I just want to mention because he deserves it. His name is Al Gersten. Did you ever meet him, Jay?
Nope, never met him.
Al Gersten was probably one of the most energetic human beings I'd ever met. He just had an astonishing energy and a life force. And he had all of these friends. And so people look at Seakeepers and say, how on earth do Seakeepers, which we think of as East Coast,
sure,
and Fort Lauderdale and Miami and Coral Gables, or Miami or Palm Beach. I
listen, big difference
doubled up on
Miami and
there.
Coral Gables.
Yeah, that's true. That's what we actually are surrounded by a wall, but not many people know that. But yeah, we actually most of our members were West Coast. That's crazy when you think about it, but that's how Patty Elkins, current director, came to the table.
Yeah.
We had Mark Grosvenor, who was down in La Jolla. We had Nancy Baldwin, who I think was in San Diego, La Jolla area. We had the McCall brothers, who were one of the first six.
Seattle, right?
And they had this amazing technology that was cellular.
Yeah.
It was like this cellular phone. How will we change the world with that?
Yeah. Maybe you think
But
back
that
in
was
time.
all Al Gersten.
Wow.
He would call these people up. He seemed to know everybody. And, you know,
use your network.
And he was just amazing in that regard. His family owned what is now thought of as the LA Lakers arena, which I was still in that phase when I was just, let me see if I got this right. Your family owns where the Lakers play? Yeah.
Yeah, that's real.
I said, that's interesting to me. I don't know. I can't quite get my arms around that. But anyway, so that's the Al Gersten. I want to give Al Gersten a shout out.
All right.
Since you're doing something here that's very unusual.
I never had the pleasure of meeting Al. So
I don't think this has ever been done before.
No.
So we're now rolling and we're doing things. We're learning it as we go. How do we make this thing happen? We are in this yacht world, which is totally amazing.
Yeah.
And we're meeting people that on this earth, you know, like Quincy Jones was still a singer.
Think about that. Right.
He was not yet the number one producer in the world.
He was still using his voice.
I'm not sure that Michael Jackson was just a little kid kind of running around the neighborhood where Quincy lived. He could sing like an angel.
Yeah.
So you're meeting these people one day at a time and building the Seakeeper thing. And we can go on a
network.
Yeah.
Well, here's an interesting segue because we are on hull T39, which is a Trinity build that is now a Seakeepers Discovery vessel. And I bring this up because when I got involved in Seakeepers, I was involved in building boats. I was participating with Phil Nuss and others at Trinity in the design and integration of equipment on this very boat we're on. And I clearly remember Seakeepers was bringing out some technology to sample water, and it required some intrusive modifications to these boats. Let's touch base there because I know we're going to springboard off of that into what we're doing today, which is so different. But once upon a time, long, long ago, we actually had Seakeeper devices that were carried aboard, and there was plumbing that was done. And talk about that, Michael, if you could, or Jay, if you
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the I think what you're referring to is the Seakeeper 1000
Yeah.
unit, which was the version 1.0. You know, as Michael was saying, the founders were all technical businesses. We're technical guys. So when they looked at the bleaching problem, the coral bleaching problem, you know, they looked at it from a technical person's perspective and said, what we need to do is collect data on this so we can measure it. And if we can measure it, then we can make a change. And so that resonated with me as a computer programmer and an IT guy, which is why signed up with SeaKeepers in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously, coming from Oklahoma, didn't know come here from Sikkim when it came to yachts, and so what I connected with was the data acquisition, right?
Right.
As a data person, and yeah, so started out with that SeaKeeper 1000. It was a big ticket, expensive, power hungry, space hungry.
Yep.
Through-hole fitting,
in
the
real
whole nine
estate.
yards.
This is very valuable.
Real estate is very valuable.
Yeah.
Ironically, and so we transitioned away from those around, I don't know, in the late 2000s, around 2010, and started going, and primarily because 2007 I think was kind of the big year for that when the iPhone came out, and that really kind of changed people's perspective as Wi-Fi became ubiquitous, and all of the connectivity was just more established. We didn't have to have those big expensive IT installations, and so we were able to go to smaller Internet of Things type data acquisition devices, which is what we use today. Ironically, we are going back to we're expanding our menu of offerings and going back to a bigger device as an option for the larger boats as well.
Okay.
To do different, more data acquisition, right? Something that takes advantage of the technology we have today with direct to satellite connectivity, all the Bluetooth, all the blockchain, all the AI, all the stuff that's going to power the future. We're tapping into that
These
now.
powerful tools.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, there was also a device, I think you, Michael, have a couple of them hanging around your office. These are like floating buoys that you guys would deploy off these boats.
Another iteration of the continuing evolution that Jay's referring to. But let's kill the SeaKeeper 1000 snake. So it was amazing to me that these yacht owners were so willing to accept a device on board that was space heavy. It wasn't small. We didn't have the technologies in those days to have the microcircuits and so forth. And you'd have to drill these 2 holes in the side of your yacht. I remember calling a certain yacht owner, and I always get to a point like this, and my standing line is that my friend Bob Dylan says, "Don't drop names." But I had to call the yacht owner in the Ocean Co. yard.
Mm-hmm.
Last night, Mohammed Arbawani received the leadership award, the top award at the ISS.
Bravo for him.
But so this was a call to a yacht owner, and they were in the yard at that very moment preparing to cut holes into his new Ocean Cup. And we stopped it just in time. And I suggested to him, that we'd received this wonderful gift, that the majority of it would be used to buy this unit. And he said, "No, just keep the money. Don't worry about it. But just get back to me when you get to your next level, whatever you're going to do now." And this was the guy that, I think I can say this, that is the co-manager of Renaissance Technologies. So he's not a dumb guy. He's super, super bright guy. He understands technologies, and he understands the ultimate. A company that became globally famous. His partner is Jim Simons, who died this year, who owns Archimedes, the fabulous 300.
Right.
Anyway, big ship.
His captain was also awarded last night.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of it's funny how these things link up. The bottom line, what I'm trying to say is, okay, so kill the SeaKeeper 1000 snake. That thing is done and dusted as far as I know. And we then rolled to these things. We loved it. They were called drifters.
Yes.
And these balls would be loaded with as many sensors as we could get into them. They'd be pushed off of yachts. And that was so exciting as we went through that iteration, where the idea was that these data would be collected and beamed to satellites and then beamed to this data center in the United Nations. But the technologies were rolling, and they were there, that we're where we are today, which is a new world, and an amazingly, the opportunities for the yacht world to be the leaders in that new world are just
I love it.
Endless.
So, but you touched on something earlier, Michael, and I want to switch back to Jay here, because indeed, how does a Oklahoma boy get into submersibles and start that part of the career that you've enjoyed?
Sure.
We've talked about it before on some islands together, but for the benefit of everybody listening in right now, it'd be great to hear this story.
Sure, absolutely. The well, it's the age-old story of how a kid grows up on a farm in Oklahoma, starts a software business, sells it, buys a submarine, and goes to Monaco.
It happens all the time.
They happen all the time.
Yeah.
Typical story.
Typical story. But literally, that's what it was. Ironically, my portal on the world growing up was National Geographic, and I had the good fortune to sell a software business in the 90s. And for the first time in my life, I had a little money and a little time on my hands.
Nice combination.
Yeah, and so I was looking for something to do, and ended up. I remembered an article in National Geographic I had read years ago about a guy who dove with killer whales in the Arctic in Norway, and so a guy named Amos Nahum, and that's where that all started for me. So I went to Norway with Amos and dove with killer whales. Stayed on a sailboat for a couple of weeks in the fjords up there, and fell in love with it. And Amos was kind enough to drag me around to all the people that he knew and all the things that he did, and met a guy with a submarine and thought that was really cool.
You think?
So, well, obviously, I wanted to drive that, and so we got into the sub business and took that. Next thing I know, ended up in Monaco, of all places, talking to Jim Gilbert and John Englander.
How about that? I love it. I love it.
That's
my
Connecting these dots.
my favorite, since we're I know it's rigid structure of this conversation, but
yes,
one of my moments of clarity in life was I'm standing with John Englander in Monaco on a rooftop venue that we had created. We actually, SeaKeepers actually created. We didn't know we were doing it at the time. We just thought that's what you did. We knew we couldn't afford to rent the Hotel du Paris or the Heritage or one of these other amazingly fancy and expensive hotels. So we created our own venues. It was fun.
Brilliant.
So we had created this wonderful rooftop venue that the Monegasque could not grasp. What on earth are you doing? I said, well, the sky's beautiful, the stars are beautiful, the Mediterranean is visible. Why don't we'd like to have our party on your rooftop. So I see this woman. She is a vision. She is a yacht world vision. I mean, she has little pieces of fabric kind of hanging off this dress. It must have cost
year's
thousands
salary
of dollars. Yeah, exactly. And she looked amazing. She had this incredible hair, and she was tricked out and fit. She just had the complete yacht world package as far as I was concerned. And she's walking right toward me, and she's looking at me with that look in her face, except that it kind of goes down from there.
It didn't turn out like you thought.
It did not develop the way I was kind of, she came to me and says, would you introduce me to John Englander? I thought, sure. So
love it.
I got Englander over, and she said, Mr. Englander, how are you? I thought, wow, this is amazing. This woman has totally got something going on here. And she says, you don't remember me, do you?
Oh.
He says, I was your cook for 2 weeks at a fish camp in Siberia. I'm looking at her and thinking,
Trying to put those two.
kind of understand what this is all about. She had met a Yacht World guy, and she married him. And she now lives in Sarasota, Florida. But what she remembered was John Englander, and she had come through the line every day for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And here she was, and I thought, this is what I love about the yacht world. This woman looks amazing. She got into America. She moved to Sarasota, Florida. She's obviously in great physical condition. Her hair looks amazing. Her diet obviously has been good.
Dialed in.
I'm thinking about all these things.
Sure.
But that was my John Englander moment. I'm glad you raised that name.
Yeah.
He was like, John was. It was wonderful to see him react to when he realized who she was. But anyway, that's a little bit of an aside, Rick.
No, that's fun.
That's backstory.
That's what I love about this. You get these stories, things that nobody has ever heard before or knows about, and you just put it out there. So, have a nice.
Well, it makes the whole experience, the SeaKeeper experience, could be that no one gets paid at the volunteer level.
No,
you
do it because
and there's a lot of volunteers.
Yep.
Right. And so along the way, the fun is creating the next thing that I think is going to be magic.
Right.
So that was one night in Monaco that I remember.
That's a beautiful segue too, because one of the things that I want to talk about, and why I have somewhat of an intimate relationship with the SeaKeepers Society, is the citizen science piece and the opportunity for people like me with my little 10-meter center console twin engine outboard to actually do something and feel like you got a place in this society to show up and participate and do well for others. I always talk about doing well for others. It's a term actually I took away from you one day when you made a comment to me a couple of years ago. I thought that's a good point. So for instance, surface interval, we have we're participating in Seabed 2030. We've got the tracker data being collected off of our backbone on our Garmin. It's been doing that for a couple of years now. I've been working with your scientist people, Aubrey, she's amazing, and Haley and Katie, wonderful ladies, and of course Tony is kind of the top of the food chain there, helping things move along. So, quick shout outs to an amazing part of SeaKeepers, which is the science side.
They're the best. Our staff, we have the best staff.
They are.
You mentioned
you've
Aubrey
attracted-
Keith,
yeah,
Tony
Aubrey.
Laroff, Tony Gilbert.
Yep.
All dedicated
Amazing
professionals. Yeah.
But I just as an example, my son Tristan, who's actually on board helping us with the audio and visual today, he and I have taken our boat out. We've worked with, for instance, Nova Southeast University, Dr. Paul Arena, at the request of SeaKeepers, and we got him and his graduate students out. We were running ROVs, remote operated vehicles, off Port Everglades on the mitigation sites, collecting data and information. We've taken scientists out behind our boat collecting. We're looking for little invertebrates that are coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and the Gulf Stream that the turtles eat. So we're towing this long net for hours at a time, offshore, 20 miles offshore, trying to find these tiny little creatures. We've been up off of Jupiter trying to identify sharks and see. And so these are just hands-on opportunities we call citizen science. And I want you guys to talk about that piece too, because there's a lot of people that listen to this conversation. And I think if you make the connection that you don't have to be on a 90-meter yacht to deliver a deliverable that has
significance.
Thank you.
It's a thousand points of light. I think that's what I like. I always like the Bush expression.
Absolutely.
It may be 1,000,000 points of light, but you never know when that one little light will become the whole key in the next development. But,
well, that's a common misnomer, and it's one that that really aggravates me. Is that a lot of people think that to participate you need to have a mega yacht, right? And it's just actually, and the mega yachts are great, and we love them, and they serve a fantastic purpose. But it's actually, when I look at what SeaKeepers does, it's like an iceberg, right? So the super yachts and the boating and yachting industry, you see the part that sticks out, the thing that everybody sees are the super yachts, but that's the smallest fraction of the global fleet, right? The smallest fraction. And so the beauty of it is that everybody can participate. It doesn't matter if you have a paddleboard or anything to get on the water, right?
Right.
We do all kinds of stuff. And honestly, especially like with the crowdsourced bathymetry, the smaller vessels, we still only have roughly 25% of the world's ocean floor mapped, right? But people think when we talk about crowdsourced bathymetry that you have to be in a big yacht doing a crossing, which is actually not, is just the opposite, because the data that we need is closer to the shore, right? And so smaller boats get closer to the shore. So it's really more a matter of having more small vessels for the crowdsourced stuff than it is to have just a few big ones. But the bottom line is that everybody can play a role.
That's right.
Everybody needs to play a role, because the problem that we're facing is too big for any single entity to fix.
Right.
I mean, not Elon Musk, not anybody else, no government, no sovereign can fix it. Everybody has to play a role. Everybody has to do their part if we're going to solve it.
Well, Jay, if we look out these windows right now, you count the boats. You can't. I mean,
No,
there's thousands of boats here,
As
and
far
there's
as you-
always
as far as you can
thousands of
see.
boats down here. As far as you can see, right? If you could just got 15% of these boats to participate in Seabed 2030, imagine the telemetry data you'd be collecting.
That's what we talk about. We're just in a meeting with the staff yesterday. You know, as the technology advances and we're able to fit more and more data collection devices on a smaller and smaller footprint, there's literally no reason that every boat should not have this data collection capability, to the point where my ultimate goal is to, once we get another generation down the road, is to get with the manufacturers, because I think this should be built into every boat. Why wouldn't it be?
It fits in the palm of your hand.
Absolutely.
Plugs right into the backbone you already have on board. It's non-intrusive.
Yep.
It's simple. The most difficult part is maybe pulling the SD card out occasionally and uploading the data.
Yeah, once that change, when we're fixing that, and that's going to be we got a new version that will do away with that, or the need to do that. So yeah, I think it's just it's everybody. I mean, we all breathe the air, right? And every other breath that we breathe comes from the ocean.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're all on this same planet, hurtling through space, and we're not getting off anytime soon.
No, sir.
We got to live with what we have, and we need to all play a role, since we're all partaking in life here. We should all play our part to foster that.
Absolutely. And
I think the challenge is to somehow utilize the SeaKeepers staff, who gets better every day, and actually meeting the demand with the supply. Case in point, I think of your boat. You called it 3 meters. Did you say
10 meters?
10 meters.
Yeah,
so it's over 30 feet.
Yeah.
So we had a call back in the day from the Bernard Baruch Sanctuary in South Carolina. This is to Jay's point. This is a estuary. It's a sanctuary. It's a estuary basically off the coast of South Carolina, generally referred to, I guess, as the Low Country. And they needed a boat, and they somehow got our name. And this boat that was supplied to them, they had no idea, because one of the things that SeaKeepers, I think, is in our future, is going to be some database way of gathering boats and on call and bringing them together to achieve missions. But I think here we had a need of a boat that could not be more than a certain draft, and it turned out to be a 27-foot aluminum boat. But that boat was the blessing for the University of Carolina that needed that boat in the Bernard Baruch Sanctuary, because it could just scoot up in there and do exactly what they needed to do. And we made a little bit of a difference, but it was a moment in our evolution where we said, why don't we try to do more of that kind of thing, because we added stuff to the boat and basically just responded to their needs.
Right. Yeah.
But we got a call from England the other day that they wanted some island in some place had no water, and it's a earthquake or something, and they needed.
You're standing from the camera.
They wanted SeaKeepers to respond. I said, it's not really what we do.
Right.
But we will do that on our side, as our gig project. We have a lot of contacts in the yacht world, but it's really that the mission is the interface between the yacht world and the scientific world, and we're in the middle. I think it would be a mistake, although there seems to be almost a constant idea of SeaKeepers becoming a research sort of oriented organization. But frankly, I think 10 years from now, we're still around and you're still talking about it. It would be the idea of how does SeaKeepers continue to support the yacht world?
Yeah, we facilitate.
The scientific world.
We
We're
don't do science. We
We're in the middle.
facilitate it.
We are the Uber. Someone said, well, you're kind of like Uber. And I said, pretty much.
Absolutely.
That's pretty much it. So that's kind of where we're headed. But we do get a lot of this, will you do this or you do that? It's like, it's really not what we do.
Right.
But the yacht world, though, to
We know
close
people
that.
who do that.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
and we're
connect them
getting better at connecting them.
And that's the beauty of this industry. It's a two degrees of separation industry.
Well, the other
or
thing
less.
Speaking of somebody who's not from the yacht industry, to me, the most beautiful thing about this industry is everybody we talk to wants to help.
Yeah.
Every
Why
boat
wouldn't
owner.
you?
I mean, it just amazes me how many good people and the good hearts that are in this industry. I'm constantly blown away. We have, as we've opened offices around the world, it continues, right? So like, we opened an office in New Zealand last year, and we're hiring more people because we have everybody we talk to, and we have one person there, or we have two now. Everybody that we talk to wants to help, and it doesn't matter where they are: Singapore, New Zealand, East Coast, West Coast, Europe, everywhere we go. And to me, that is the most gratifying thing, especially for somebody who's not from the yacht industry.
Right. Well, it's a unique perspective then you bring.
And that's probably where you get your breakthroughs.
The rest of us grew up in the yachting industry. You come from outside of it, so you see something the rest of us maybe don't see sometimes.
Yeah, and it's funny to me because it's always in SeaKeepers. I get to work with a lot of different people in the industry and at a lot of different levels. Owners, crew, industry people, and everybody to a person is like that. Mm-hmm. It's just fascinating to me, and I love it. And so it speaks volumes. It speaks volumes about this industry.
It does.
One of the things that in SeaKeepers is one of the reasons I enjoy working with Jay is you got to have an organization that talks to each other. You gotta have a conversation. You got to be willing to say, "I'm not so sure. I think that's a good idea," or to say, "I'm 100% committed to a good idea," and try to get other people to go along with it.
Right on.
We do have a very collegial board. And very different capabilities. We have the triple threat and Mark Luther, and always just because he went to one of the best schools in America for marine research at the University of North Carolina, and he has 3 degrees. He's a PhD, has a master's degree and a regular degree, but a bachelor's. He is a tremendous resource for SeaKeepers. And then we have the quintessential networker, the woman who knows from royalty to heads of state.
You must be speaking of Norma Treese.
No, I'm thinking actually of Patty Elkes.
Oh, sorry, Patty.
But Patty Elkes and Norma Treese are the same. They kind of are the same situation in a certain way. Norma is 100% totally devoted to the yacht world.
She is.
She's just, this is her space. She's grown up in this space. She had this amazing upbringing with her father was a diplomat, French diplomat. She grew up in Paris. She speaks multiple languages. She's like tailor-made for the yacht world. She knows she can move around on Antibes or Paris or anywhere in the world where her father had entertained dignitaries and people, and she just became a natural. And her value system is wonderful in the sense of the way she sees the world. I know that world. She's multi-talented. She's like a cordon bleu chef. And if you want something done, let me just tell you something. You point her in the right direction.
Yeah.
And you better
get out of the way.
You better
Exactly
either lead or follow or get out of the way because she's going to take care of it. And I think, but just last night, and I want to just touch back to the SeaKeeper role. You raised it with, and I think of, the linear way of thinking. But we had this event. You may have been there, Rick, in London a few years ago. I think it was actually
at the Shard.
I think it was, yes, and it was. I think that was like the eve of the invasion of Ukraine. I think it was maybe that year. I think I may be right about that. January 22 was when Putin rolled into Ukraine, and these people showed up, and they had this idea that was immediately recognizable as possibly a game changer. A lot of people in SeaKeepers are worried about ocean mining and ocean floor exploration and exploitation and the ruination of certain environmental systems. And these are the logger people. So they showed up, and from that meeting, it's evolved to last night, the guy that was one of the prime movers received an award for improving yachting.
Yes,
it's really
that
not
was
improved.
Sound Down. That was
but see, he Sound Down and Sounder. But it started out. You're right.
I'm sorry.
Showing your age.
Far Sounder. Yes.
Far Sounder.
Sorry, Matthew.
No. It's went through several iterations of names that is now, but he's actually very much in the same space that we're in, with Seakeepers being the number one provider of these so-called loggers that are mapping the ocean floor. And we're ahead of schedule.
That's amazing.
We're ahead of schedule. It's by 2030 to map the ocean floor, but it's all these different, Albert the First, takes some credit, and this unit that's in Monaco takes some credit. I think you know the name of that group. IHO.
Yep.
And they're kind of in on the deal. It's a bathymetric survey, and there's this organization that's there, and it fits in with the United Nations, and it fits in with Jamie McMichael Phillips, and also the inventor. And you know what? From my point of view is, I'm only interested in the end result. It's going to be to map the ocean floor. But if Jay fulfills his ambitions of owning a submarine, Seakeepers will be there monitoring subsurface activity if we have the resources to do it, and trying to deal with the people that want to mine the ocean floor. Mm-hmm. We're going to be there.
Right.
But you gotta start with a party in London. You got to understand that the yacht world, it works on parties. It works on alcohol.
It is a social network.
It is
a social network. Absolutely.
It is maybe the most valuable social network in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very few people totally grasp that it's an entree into the underutilized, the most grossly underutilized capacity of time and wealth and technology in the world.
Yeah.
These boats are sitting here.
It's a lot of energy.
It's all there.
Yeah.
And if you can grasp what Seakeepers does, which it's not so easy, and understand the role that a Normatrice plays in that, or the role that everyone on the board plays, they all bring that together. If you want to go talk to that of Yacht X over there, Brand X, whatever it is, Normatrice will be on that boat within by noon. We're not past noon yet. Patty Elkas, if you want to talk to, HRH, Prince Albert, she could probably arrange the meeting. Tonight, if I may, it's going to be, by the time this podcast airs, maybe it'll be over, but back in the day, 2014 to be specific, we were introduced to a woman who had a kind of a high-class problem. Her problem is that her husband had written books and made movies that changed, it almost made Discovery Network. They created something called Shark Week.
Oh, yeah.
And they scared the crap out of everybody. And they would always play the outtakes from the Jaws. But Wendy Benchley, who will be at our dinner tonight, dedicated her life to educating people on sharks.
Yes.
The incredible role they play. It's just, well, what do Seakeepers do? Well, here's what we do. We nominate a Wendy Benchley.
Yeah.
We support her activities. She will now come to our dinner. We will spread her faith a little bit. And she'll do the shark piece. By the way, Tony Gilbert, his nickname is Tony Tiburon, which means shark in Spanish.
Right. So, and correct me if I'm wrong.
It all comes together.
Her husband, Peter Benchley.
Yes.
He came to regret the success of Jaws.
Oh my God!
He had no intention of having that book that turned into that amazing movie, that turned into a series of movies that terrified an entire world of human beings.
Oh yeah.
That allowed for a period of time the wholesale slaughter of shark just because sharks were the devil incarnate.
I think the irony is of that is that, and you're exactly right. But I think the irony is if you would have started then, if the shark scientists would have come out and said, "Hey, we have to take care of these sharks," they wouldn't have gotten any airtime.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
I think it
unintended
had to
consequences.
Happen. It did. I think that's exactly what
you got to stop going backwards before you go forward.
Right? Yeah.
The movie Jaws was a perfect. He's actually talked about his inspiration, and I remember Jaws was 50 years ago. It was 74.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember when it came out.
Yeah, just so we're clear. And about that time, Jay mentioned earlier that he was inspired by National Geographic. National Geographic, a lot of the Africans and a lot of the Arabs don't eat fish. It's one one of those products. I don't know what you call it. It's unstable. It's just not it's a product that needs to be refrigerated.
Yeah, it doesn't
and
last
even
long.
if refrigerated, you have to eat it.
Yeah.
So they have an expression in the Arab world: fish swells the head. So you don't eat fish. So people can be dying in Biafra or in Somalia, but there's fish. It's teeming with fish, but their culture, they don't get to the point of saying let's fish it and eat those fish. They do now, by the way. They do cell phone technology where the women catch a fish and they call up to the market. I got a fish. Are you ready? Yeah, I just sold the last fish. Bring me another one. And they do it instant.
That's interesting.
They run that fish up the
That's
hill.
fresh fish.
Oh, that's fresh fish.
Yeah.
They still got the tails doing that. So they do it with cell phones now.
Mm.
So Bill Gates gave them free cell phones or something.
Right.
I love it.
But my point
How about
is,
a refrigerator?
yeah, that may be the other thing they could do. But see, now you're going in the wrong direction. You want fresh fish? Nairobi is the place to be, or Mombasa. But here's my point. They caught a shark in Port Sudan that was the size of the shark in Jaws.
Mm.
And my understanding is that it was right about the time that Peter Benchley was a writer thinking, holy crap, this is massive. But it was a shark that had just lived in this area. It had plenty to do, plenty to eat, was untouchable. It had got to be this massive size. And next thing you know, in America, what was it called? Amityville or something?
Amityville, yep. Yep.
But I think that, but the point is that Wendy Benchley, somehow, everything that Jay referred to, the evolution of what you have to have for the spark, is Peter Benchley has to write these amazing books and make these amazing movies with Steven Spielberg. And then Wendy comes along and starts educating.
Beautiful.
And now that's where we are. And that's one of our big subsets of shark tagging and supporting shark scientists.
And Michael, you just gave me a perfect segue because we are going to reconvene this evening at the International SeaKeepers Society Founders Dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I've been attending for the last 4 or 5 years. I think it's a remarkable event that you guys host and put on. And I think it is that kind of like last night was the Academy Awards for the large yacht industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think tonight is and will become in years to come the maybe the environmental side of the equation, that where people want to, just like we did last night, we want to show up and be part of something bigger than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you guys do an amazing job with that. Jay, you want to tell us a little bit about tonight, what that's going to be like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's my favorite night of the year because we get to celebrate all our supporters and the scientists and all the people that make this thing work, including our staff. And so everybody, is just works tirelessly all year, and everybody, the industry supports us and our mission just so magically in every way, monetarily and with the people and with the boats, and it just is it's just really fun to have everybody together and be able to celebrate what we've accomplished in the last year.
Bravo.
And let me just say this. I think that there's tonight's award winner, Seakeeper of the Year, is Guy Harvey.
Amazing, huh?
Now here you have a guy, in more ways than one, who is a painter.
Right.
So I grew up with a photograph that I carted from school to school and from town to town back in the day. That was made by a photographic artist, Bob Talbot. He was before Amos Nashun.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Talbot had this iconic photo that I just loved it. It was enchanting. It was called Orcus. It was these two whales, and I just looked at that thing and I would just think about what that was, But Bob Talbot could see something that, some 19-year-old at the University of Florida could see and wonder about the world out there, and the world under there. Bob Talbot was a Seakeeper of the Year award winner decades ago. Guy Harvey came along, and he's going to take that whole thing to another level. He's going to now paint pelagic fish. That was his thing.
Yeah.
And he, out of Jamaica, gifted artist, painted these beautiful paintings of fish. And that basically has been his his now Guy Harvey Foundation and a Guy Harvey for-profit organization. But to me, it's like, wow, you have a guy that's in the world that we live in. He sees something that the rest of us who are not artists see. He's actually has the ability to convert that vision to something. And you can only imagine how does that affect millions of people. Now he has a lot of knockoffs, people that they want to be Guy Harvey.
Of course.
And that's a natural evolution. But tonight,
Ultimate compliment.
he will be acknowledged as what we see as a visionary seakeeper that really changed the whole dynamic. There's no one like him.
No.
You see some of the people that came a little bit later, their work is good, but
they were inspired by the original master.
But once again, we have a situation where art has inspired, right? So same thing with Jaws, got the focus on the sharks, right? And so Guy Harvey, I mean, just like you come into Fort Lauderdale Airport, the first thing you see is a giant mural. He's everywhere. And so he did the same thing. He got people to focus on that part of the environment, and the environment has benefited greatly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I am looking forward to tonight. I'm looking forward to spending a little bit of time with you and your guests tonight, and really enjoying the whole ambience of what this is. What a good time! We've been looking forward to having this conversation for a while now, and because we missed our opportunity in Bimini, we got Michael. We're double blessed. No, not at all.
Let's just call this
we appreciate it,
the first of a series.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Very exciting. Yeah, I really do enjoy it.
Great organization. There's no mistaking. I'm a huge fan, huge supporter. Anything I can do now and in the future to make this organization go, I'm thrilled to be part of it.
Let me just say we appreciate what you do for us, and you and Tristan both. And we were on your boat this summer on doing a little mission work, and
good fun.
It is good fun, and that's kind of the corollary of it. Is that it's good people doing good things and making the world a better place. That's right.
Absolutely.
Well for others.
Well, good.
It's another, but just to follow up on that, I mean, what you're doing, it is a different dimension. I'm not sure what you call it, but it's a different media, a different dimension. It's a different thing. That some people see it early on, other people see it a little bit later. But at the end of the day, this is appreciated because you're doing something that's we don't do, and you're getting the word out there. And that 1,000 point of light thing, I appreciate it. I mean, not just to work with your boat and attending. Like the crossing and the things you've done in that regard, but also this podcast is greatly appreciated.
Well, I think this one's going to be a little closer to like 50,000 points of light. So,
wow!
Yeah, so we'll enjoy that, and again, it's because of guys like you that people pay attention to what we're talking about, and you bring the gravitas, you bring the stories, you bring the vision, you bring the insight, and I'm just the caretaker of that. I'm the one that gets to bring it forward, and I'm thrilled to do it.
Wonderful.
That's our pleasure.
Good stuff. Well, guys,
all the best.
Again, thank you very much. We'll see you this evening.
Yes, sir.
Jay, thanks for coming on board. Michael, always a pleasure, sir.
Best fishes.
And until the next time, I'm out of here.